opening up the doors of access in agriculture, as the example we've been sticking with, to black farmers. Nothing stops that.
Well, you're quite right. Nothing stops that. But that's why we say, as a counter to black economic empowerment, because why do you have to have black economic empowerment to intervene? You've used the term capital. You're quite right. If you go specific, whether it is land, or whether you want to become a farmer, or whether you want to be a business person, you need capital. But then the Freedom Front Plus says, take race out of it, because we have talented people that wants to be a business person. Let's stay to the business thing. And then we say there should be a criteria to look at the circumstances on that specific, can I say, business, irrespective of race, whether it's a white person, a black person, it doesn't matter. Is it a viable option to have this business? Of course there can be capital, support. Let's take the farmers. You have the land bank. That's why there is a land bank. It's always been that. But they must go and look whether the option is viable. You can't just start a business. You can't just start farming. You will have to make a proper analysis whether this is going to be a successful business. Is the product, will it sell itself, or whatever the case may be. But don't do the criteria judging for the capital based on race.
Is it that easy to take race out of it? Do you get a sense that South Africa is ready to move on from race?
Yes, I am. And the facts are there. Did the economy increase, and did the economy grew with black economic empowerment? In fact, if you go and look at the statistics, when Cyril Ramaphosa became the president, let's take just those time, then the economy, the growth rate was about 1.3%. It's now below 1%. So if black economic empowerment was so powerful, was so to the benefit of all the people of South Africa, why are we struggling with a very low economic growth rate? So that is proof.
So are you saying that the state of the South African economy right now is as a result of black economic empowerment?
Part. Yes, part.
Surely that can't be true.
Yes, of course it's true. You go and ask investors, specific foreign investors, why do they not come and invest in South Africa? Then they immediately tell you, well, there are many factors. But a very important one is because of black economic empowerment, they say now they are forced to have certain co-owners of their business to do business in South Africa. That's black economic empowerment. And that's why they do not come and invest in South Africa. Shell, at this moment, is leaving South Africa. Go and read. Why are they leaving South Africa?
Well, they're not leaving because of black economic empowerment.
It's one of them.
They're leaving because of their overall global strategy, Dr. Groenewald.
No, Cathy, no, let's be honest towards each other.
They're investing in their upstream business. It's been well documented.
Yeah, that is a politically correct answer to give as far as that is concerned. Go and read carefully.
No, but let's talk about what is available factually on the record. Yes, it's convenient for people to say that Shell are leaving because the country's in a dire state or whatever the case might be, but Shell itself has said globally that they're investing more in the upstream business.
I say again, go and read all the articles on that. I don't say it is only because of black economic empowerment. There are many factors. Black economic empowerment. They also stated in terms of safety, crime in South Africa. You go and do a proper analysis as far as that is concerned. I do not believe that the profit in South Africa is so poor that they will withdraw, just to withdraw. My question is the final question. If you can anyone can answer that to me and prove me wrong, then I will say I will reconsider. Why are the economy in South Africa, where we are below 1%, we have black economic empowerment for the last 30 years. Why, if you talk to ordinary people, they say they never benefited from black economic empowerment. It's only the black elite connected people that benefited from them. Why do they say that? And by the way, you go and read English newspapers. They all agree. BEE and affirmative action, they have people there writing articles and said it was a failure in South Africa.
So then, Dr. Groenewald, how then, just beyond this idea of a skills transfer, would a Freedom Front Plus government cater to the needs of a black majority that is still largely disenfranchised, that is still largely amongst the most vulnerable in this country, and black women in particular, which accounts for millions of people. So how would the Freedom Front Plus then change the economic status of black people?
You will change that by ensuring that people get jobs in South Africa. Because if you are unemployed, you do not have an income, then you cannot see to the needs of your loved ones. And the way to do that is to say that you must create circumstances in South Africa, in the economy, that is, can I say, enhancing and conducive for people to start a business. Now let's get practical. I said it before. If a black person comes forward, have a very good idea, a very good, solid business plan, then don't look at the color, look at the viability of that business plan. And then, by means of a criteria to say, well, this is the amount of money needed, and we can give the capital on a very low interest rate, but with that, you don't have the skills for that. Let's ask other businesses who do have skills to also, with you, walk the path or the road to ensure that your business is a success. It's no need. You're starting a business for 1 year, and then you sit, after that, you have a lot of debt you have to look at. And that's in practical terms what we say. But in policy, we must create circumstances that will enhance economic growth by creating jobs that will be conducive for people to start a business.
I'm going to start bringing in some of our callers. I'm going to ask everybody, please try and keep it as short as possible. Let me kick it off with Nigel. You are in Durban. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. Thank you. Excuse me. Good morning, Dr. Groenewald. If I may speak directly to you, Doctor, I first heard you at some length on the radio only recently, of course, because of the election. It was clear to me from a single hearing of what you were saying about your party that your party is by no means a simple descendant of the old National Party, by no means far right, by no means white supremacist. As a liberal Democrat, I realized at once, hearing you, that I would feel perfectly at home in a coalition with your party, and in that being so, I wish you and your party all the very best. I'll have my best events for the coming election, and you deserve to at least double your representation in the Assembly. I hope you triple and quadruple it.
All right, Nigel, thanks for the call. Denzel in Kimberley, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. I hope you're well. Goeiemorgen, Mr. Groenewald. Ek hoop dit gaan goed met u, is goed vir hom van u te hoor. Cathy, pala, Mr. Groenewald. The president had a lot of cash on his premises. He got robbed at the game farm. Now, there was a musician, his name was Ifani. Ifani got robbed once, he got hijacked of his Golf 6. What he did, he sold it and then he bought himself an Etios. I stand to be corrected, a smaller car. to get the thingy of him. How can I put it? So my question, Mr. Groenewald, is: don't you think it's irresponsible of farmers to carry a lot of cash on them, and they are putting other farmers, the spotlight on other farmers as well? So
Okay.
don't you think it's, yeah.
All right,
And-
Denzel, thanks
and-
for the question. Mike, you're out in Newlands. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Cathy. Good morning, Dr. Groenewald. First of all, I would like to disagree with you on one thing. The black empowerment has worked. Edwin Sodi has made hundreds of millions of rands, and so have all his friends. So it does work for a few. The question I would like to raise is, we're getting bogged down in transformation. There'll be nothing left in this country to transform very shortly. Shell, Engine, BMP, Bank, Bell, Anglo-American, the list is endless of companies that are pulling out, and none are putting in. And now, why is that, I must ask? Well, that is because we have expropriation without compensation. Nobody wants to invest in a country where they'll take your property. We have employment equity, which one company in the UK called racism, because they have to not choose people on the colour of their skin. And so, Singapore, unions...
Mike, the connection to you is Mike. The connection to you is terrible. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. I'm going to have to move on. Apologies, Mike. Solly, you're in Cape Town. Good morning.
Morning, Cathy. Nice to hear you again. And morning, Mr. Groenewald. I think Mr. Groenewald is still living in the old world. I grew up under apartheid for 50 years. And I ran many businesses and I have employed many, many people. He doesn't tell you that for 50 years, they made sure that every Afrikaner was put in all the jobs, nobody else. And he made them able that way. And that he doesn't talk about because he was part and parcel of the whole lot. But let me give you a quick synopsis. We took a young black child from a school that was under trees. We nursed them right through. We put them to university. We got them through. We got them to get their masters in science. When he went for his first interview, the guy asked him, "Do you speak Afrikaans?" He said, "No." He said, "You don't qualify." And he was out. When he went for the second one, the guy said, "Oh, I like all your symbols. I like what it is. We'll start you at 6,000 rand a month." I was so annoyed that I called the CEO of the listed company and they said, please, let's stop here. I'll deal with it. And they increased it immediately to 35,000 rand. He's living in a world that he thinks that it's still apartheid. That will never work. We'll have to have our people. We'll have to get rid of corruption. We will have to get the wrongs. But at the end of the day, I think Mr. Groenewald is living in a world of his own.
All right, Solly, thanks for that call. Dr. Groenewald, let me give you an opportunity to come in quickly and see if we'll still have time for more calls.
Well, firstly, let us start with Solly, the last caller. Let me say to you this. We have a person in South Africa, Patrice Motsepe. He's a billionaire. He was even before 94. He was a businessman. He made a success of it, saying, I live in a different world. Well, if I look in South Africa today, after 30 years of the new dispensation, talking about brown people, there was a court case in correctional services of 9 people who did not get promoted because of affirmative action. 8 of those 9 employees were brown people and 1 white. So if we are in a new world, why is it then that brown people, because on the color of their skin, did not get promoted in correctional services? In eThekwini in Durban, the council put an advertisement in a newspaper advertising an auction of their second-hand vehicles, stating clearly, no whites, no brown people, and no Indians are allowed to participate in that tender process. It appears to me that if I look at these things that is happening now, we're even further back than before 1994. For Mike, you talk about transformation and everything. Thank you. You're quite right, and you've mentioned expropriation without compensation. There are many factors that have a negative influence on economic growth in South Africa, which expropriation without compensation is one. People want surety of their property. This creates insecurity and people thinking twice. So I agree, we will have to do away with that. If we go to Denzel from Kimberley, thank you, and goeiemorgen. Talking about, you said the farms, is it not creating a risk when they have a lot of cash on their farms? Yes, they do. And I said it before. In a modern technology, people should have their bank accounts. You could only make transfers on internet. So it is creating a risk. There's no doubt about that. And where I go, I ask farmers specifically, try to have as less cash on hand as possible, because that is an attraction. But that is not the only reason why we have farm attacks and farm murders. Lastly, if I am correct, Nigel, thank you for the good wishes, and I appreciate your support. And in a coalition, you're quite right, we do believe that the Freedom Front Plus can play a stable role in a coalition, and we can bring our conservative values into such a government, which we believe is to the benefit of all the people in South Africa.
Ali, you're out in Mafikeng. Good morning.
My question to Mr. Groenewald is on the issue of their policies, their values. They say they stand for right to life. That is against abortion and euthanasia. They say again they are against the death penalty. Now here, they support the death penalty. Now the same people are saying they are against it. They support, they advocate the right to life. They are promoting death penalty, of which I support them in the sense that the Sixth Commandment says in their own Bible. It says, "Thou shalt not kill." Now, on the issue of expropriation without compensation, in their early manier se heilige skrif in Leviticus 25 verse 23, it says that the land must not be sold permanently because the land is mine and you are but aliens and my tenants. That says Jehovah. They're talking about the year of Jubilee. How do you rob people land forever, starting with the Khoisan?
Okay, all right.
When are we going to come up with the year of Jubilee?
All right. Ali, thanks for that call. Janusz in Cape Town.
Good morning, Cathy. Good morning, Dr. Groenewald.
Briefly, Janusz.
Yes, I've got a question about EFF nationalization. We know that actually even South African national institutions, they are not profitable, and they want now to nationalize everything. I came from the countries which was nationalized completely. It was total disaster. Please don't allow them to nationalize everything. Otherwise, we're going to experience like we experienced in Poland and other countries.
Okay.
We have to wait for the bread for hours to buy the bread.
Okay, Janusz, I thought you had a question. It's more for comment. So, Dr. Groenewald, just those questions, please.
I will we will do everything in our power to prevent any nationalization. It will destroy the country. The question from Mafikeng, you referred to the right to life. When it comes to abortion, our policy is quite clear. We say that we are against abortion, except where the life of the woman is in danger, or in the case of rape. So we do believe in the right of life. You also referred to expropriation and rob the land. Let me put it very briefly. In the 1913 Land Acts, where people were removed from their land, there was, in the whole land reform process, restitution for those people. 80,000 claimants that could have came forward with claims specifically for the restitution of the 1913 Land Acts. So there was restitution for those people.
I'm going to squeeze this one last one in.
Hi, Cathy. Gurani speaking here from Limpopo. I have two questions for the leader there. One, if I were to join the party and I'm a black woman who is LGBTQI, would I be eligible for a position? Should I go up the ranks? Bearing in mind that I'm black, I'm female, I'm LGBTQ, are they diverse enough to allow for that kind of inclusion in their party, and not just inclusion as a member, but in their leadership structures as well? Thank you.
Well, briefly to say that we said we only look at merit. If you are qualified for the position and you're the best candidate, then you will get that position, because based only on one criteria, namely merit.
Okay, that's where we'll leave it with Dr. Pieter Groenewald, the president of the Freedom Front Plus. It's just after 11 o'clock, time for your latest news update.
Cathy, the top stories: Zawa, 3 men killed in a Mitchell's Plain shooting, and Malema campaigns in the Northern Cape. Very good morning. 3 men have been gunned down in a suspected gang-related shooting in Mitchell's Plain on the Cape Flats. 6 others were wounded in the attack. Police spokesperson Andre Trout says that 2 people fired shots at a group of men in a tavern in Rocklands.
The injured victims were admitted to hospital for medical treatment, while the suspects fled, which initiated a large-scale manhunt in the vicinity and adjacent neighborhoods. In the meantime, additional operational forces have been deployed in the area to curb retaliation or any other form of violence, as gangsterism holding communities at ransom will not be allowed.
A large team of forensic pathology experts is currently on the scene of the George collapsed building to assist with identifying those who died in the tragedy. 24 people have been declared dead, while rescue efforts continue to focus on the 28 others unaccounted for. The Forensic Pathology Services Floyd Hervels says the efforts in identifying the deceased are being fast-tracked to provide closure to family and friends. He says while some of the deceased have been identified, DNA testing, fingerprinting and other methods are being used to identify the others.
Right now, the bodies that are being recovered, they are in a state of decomposition. Right, so that makes the visual identification a little bit more tricky and a little bit more difficult. But normally we would not show any pictures to any families of any bodies in a state of decomposition, but because of the situation we find ourselves in, we have to sensitize the family members to the fact that the pictures might be gory, but also it will assist us to.
Gauteng Education MEC Matumechilwane has expressed shock following the death of 2 learners at the David Makubo High in Gulfontein outside Midrand. It's reported that a grade 10 learner died of illness a few days ago, while another one, a grade 12 learner, collapsed during the memorial service held for the grade 10 learner. Officials say the situation turned worse when most of the learners started screaming, tumbling on the ground, with some fainting last Thursday. It was at this point that community members allegedly entered the school premises, looting some of the resources, including food supplies from the school nutrition program. The department's spokesperson, Steve Mabona.
The police are investigating circumstances surrounding the death of a grade 12 boy learner, and information will be shared in due course. Currently, our priority is to provide all necessary support to staff, learners, families, and the counselling actually has commenced at the school. We have partners that are assisting us to make sure that we provide necessary counselling.
Looking at election news now, DA MP Kevin Milham says load shedding is the cause of economic stagnation in South Africa. He said this during the energy debate, which was held in Bloemfontein. 6 political parties participated in the debate ahead of the elections. Milham says that the impact of load shedding has led to unemployment, a stagnant economy, and the closure of some businesses.
It's very important. It's critical. But you can't do that if there's no electricity to give those people, if the power plants are not producing electricity. Let's be very clear. Load shedding equals job shedding. We have the highest unemployment in the world in this country. 7 out of 10 young South Africans are unemployed. And the single biggest contributor to load shed, to economic stagnation is load shedding.
The African Congress for Transformation's Tony Mokwena says load shedding is man-made. He says during the Rugby World Cup last year, load shedding was suspended, but matriculants wrote exams during rolling blackouts.
The South Africans can vote for ACT. We are going to make sure that we revive ESCOM. We will make sure that we employ the qualified electricians, the qualified electrical engineers, and we'll also make sure that we create the nuclear plant so that we stop this thing of load shedding.
And hundreds of EFF supporters at Postmansberg in the Northern Cape say they are hopeful that their lives will change for the better after the elections. Supporters braved the scorching sun to listen to EFF President Julius Malema, who assured them that under the party's leadership they will receive proper basic services. Malema says the mines in the province should benefit the residents.
We will be with you to make sure that the mines do good because they promised to do so when they were applying for licenses. So we are here to say all of these mines must employ our people and pay them proper wages, and they must give them medical aid, and they must give them pension fund so that the jobs in the mines are guaranteed and jobs in the mines are paying very well.
Recapping the top story, 3 men have been gunned down in a suspected gang-related shooting in Mitchell's Plain on the Cape Flats. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemele.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Any person aggrieved by any political advertisement or political election broadcast that is broadcast by SAFM may lodge a complaint within 5 days from broadcast with the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, ICASA. To lodge your complaint, please contact ICASA's Compliance Department via telephone number on 012-568-3233. That's 012-568-3233. Or email broadcastingcompliance@icasa.org.za. That's broadcastingcompliance@icasa.org.za. Alternatively, complaintsccc@icasa.org.za. That's complaintsccc@icasa.org.za.
Greenpeace is on a mission for a greener world. We're all about making the switch from fossil fuels to renewable energy because it's just common sense, right? Don't buy into the hype about oil and gas. They'll only make our climate crisis and extreme weather worse. We're pushing for real change, like in Mpumalanga, where we teamed up with MS Environmental Projects, who just won in court against the municipality for pollution. So when it's time to vote, remember to say yes to renewable energy. Swing by greenpeace.org/Africa to join the movement.
I believe in a South Africa where the economy works for all and where there's at least one job in every home. Where our children are maths and science champions, not dying in pit latrines.
Where the color of my skin doesn't determine my chances in life.
I believe in a South Africa where all citizens can be proud of their country.
And where my family will not be the next victim of a violent act of crime.
A place where those who steal public monies are arrested and jailed.
This dream is possible, and together we can build one South Africa. I'm Musi Maimane, and on these elections, I'm asking you to vote for Build One South Africa.
This political election broadcast was brought to you in terms of the ICASA regulation governing the election period. The views expressed in this political election broadcast are those of the political party and not of the SABC.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Morning, Cathy and listeners. I want to know, this is Alfred Gama here at Bizana in the Eastern Cape Province. I want to know to Mr. Groeneveld that what is their stance on illegal foreigners in South Africa. I want to know what is their stance on illegal foreigners in South Africa. Thank you, Cathy, and the listeners.
Hey, Cathy. It's Stebalo here in Bostonville. I just want to know from your guest there, Dr. Kronoval, what is his position in terms of national minimum wage? Like, I just want to know his thoughts about that.
Morning to you, Cathy. It's William Mdlulo of Richards Bay. I'm a tracker. According to you, Mr. Kronoval. Mr. Kronoval, no matter what people say to you, I'm an African origin, born in South Africa. I am Umzulu. You know, no matter what people say, it makes no difference. The first thing that we must know and understand is the word politic. That's where we must start off. Because Freedom Front Plus, EFF, IFP, DA, they are all the same. They are in political train, you know. So ANC does not serve us as Africans. It doesn't. So who do they stand for? So it's all the same.
Hi, Sis Cathy. I think I understand why Mr. Groenewald is driving himself and all that. If I have to be honest, you know, give credit where it's due. I think he's one of the few politicians I've sit down and listened to that are making like mature kind of sense. Like every time all his interview, I find them so mature, you know, the way he conducts himself, the political party and everything. He's one of the few matured politicians that I know in South Africa that we still have. Even you won't hear him making noise there and there, but I think it's adorable, his leadership. God bless him, Mr. Groenewald. Thank you. Go and a good show.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
It's 12 after 11 o'clock. Welcome to the third hour of the Talking Point this morning. For this hour, we're going to be turning our attention to the state of nursing, and we're looking at this issue particularly through the lens of the trade unions. Gwena Manamela is General Secretary of the Democratic Nursing Organization of South Africa. Gwena, good morning.
Good morning, Sis Cathy and the listeners, and thank you for the invite.
Ruben Maleka is manager at the Public Servants Association. Ruben, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. Good morning to the listeners of SAFM and my colleague, Gwena Manamela there.
And Jabulani Mashego is Provincial Secretary for Hospersa in Limpopo. Jabulani, good morning.
Morning, Cathy. Thank you very much to join me on this discussion. And also morning to the listeners of SAFM, including my colleagues here, Gwena and Malika. Thank you very much.
All right. One of the things that we first wanted to do was to get a sense of the state of nursing and nurses in the workplace from you as unions, their general impressions, right, that we are aware of, that are available in the public domain. But we wanted to get the specifics from you as the individuals that represent the thousands of nurses in this country. Gwena, let me start with you. What is the state of nursing in South Africa?
Thank you, Sefkeda, and good morning. You'll pardon me for my voice. I'm recovering from flu. I hope the quality of my voice will be that the listeners will be able to get. Sefkeda, let's first start by saying happy belated International Nurses Week to all the nurses of the world. As we know that the last week started from the 6th was the Nurses Week. We started with celebrating the midwives. They were followed by the school nurses and the students and so on. So the whole week until the 12th was dedicated for celebrating the nurses, But maybe going to forward to your question, not forgetting, that the provinces that are still going to celebrate this day, even after the 12th of May. In fact, the whole of May in some countries is dedicated as the Nurses Month. But we are celebrating these nurses, because I wanted to start there so that at least we start with a certain context around the issue of the nurses. We are celebrating them, for changing the status of the healthcare.
Because in the early 1800s, if we have to start there, is that the nurses, when they agreed to go to war and assist, they found the hospitals, the military hospitals, and the status of the hospitals at the time being dirty, with a bad reputation, unclean, they were disorderly, there were infections, there were all that, nobody taking care of the patients 24/7. And this nurse came up, lighting the candle during the night, sitting with the patients throughout the night until the morning. So this person was the person that was with the patient 24 hours, knowing the patients, the needs of the patients, physical, psychological, and otherwise. So that is why we want to stress that part of the nurse that braved himself or herself to agree to say, I'll go to this war, I will agree to go to this biological war, fighting with the soldiers that I don't see. Not forgetting that there are those that are working under very difficult situations where there is real war. So that's why we're celebrating this Nurses Cathy. But maybe coming back home to South Africa, the status in our country, there are similar things that we talk about them all the time, year in, year out, Cathy. And from a union point of view, you must know that we take care of the bread and butter issues of our nurses. And one of the things is the issue of the benefits to the nurses that are not satisfactory, are not properly reviewed, as is Cathy. And the other thing is their numbers. Their numbers are going down. We know we are fresh from the COVID-19, where we lost a lot of our cadres. I was in Limpopo celebrating with them the IND yesterday. They were reading the statistics from different regions. You could hear that really we lost a lot. From one province, you can lose more than 100 nurses in Limpopo only during the COVID-19. Really, we have lost a lot of cadres, but we lost the boots on the ground. So that is the status that we are in. But we are happy because during our celebrations of the International Nurses Day, internationally, when the International Council of Nurses conducted their researches and interviews and so on, because before we celebrate each year, they will go out and ask the associations that are affiliated to ICN and members and so on, what is the feel on the ground. But what we are happy about this time around.
Okay.
Yeah, what we are happy about this time around is that we are starting to feel the community supporting the nurses. Because previously we would be saying communities are losing confidence in nurses because when they go there, this is what they get and all that. But now, and our theme this year talks to that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Gwena, we'll pause it there. Ruben, let me give you a chance to come in. How would you, as the PSA, describe the state of the nursing fraternity today?
Yeah, thank you very much, Cathy. I think let me take from the point that Gwena has mentioned of the fact that we have lost nurses, and we regard this as a looming crisis for the nurses in the country. If Gwena pointed out to the fact that during COVID, we have lost hundreds and hundreds of nurses who succumbed to the COVID-19, and others left for many other reasons. So there's a looming crisis of the nursing profession in the country, where we know very well that in the first place, the young generation, if you look at the young generation of today, they are not interested in becoming nurses. The question is why? Because if you don't have, if you have an aging nursing professionals that are out there, and there's no feeder of the young ones who are coming in to an extent that they can start filling up the gaps from the bottom up. So it's a serious crisis. And the other factor is that there is no career advancement for our nurses. Many of our nurses have been in one position or in one kind of a band for a longer period, and it creates a lot of strain and disgruntlement to say, but why would I become a nurse and be on the same level for quite some time without any career advancement? And one other thing, Cathy, is the issue of shortage of staff, nurses, and secondly, the unsafe working working environment, which in many respects, we have got reports out, Cathy, where you have heard that nurses or other health professionals were attacked by criminals or even the public in the course of their duties. And this relates to the shortage of resources within the working environment, where the nurses would want to give a particular medicine and it's not available, and it gets frustrated. They're confronted by the public to say, but how could you be of service if you don't have these basics? So the issue of resources also put a lot of strain on the well-being of our nurses, because they are compromised while they have to deliver a quality service to patients when they find themselves not having the right resources such as medicine that they must dispense to those who need their services. So it's a serious crisis to find nurses being attacked by the public, at the same time also being challenged by the fact that criminals also take advantage, because if a nurse has to render a service in the evening and somebody takes advantage that due to the access of the clinic, I can be able to access, find myself in the clinic being a criminal or who is not there as a patient but to attack nurses, is very unfortunate. So those are the challenges and some of the things that are there that gives a lot of challenge to most of our nurses who are dedicated, who really wants to render a service to the public. However, those are the challenges that they face on a daily basis. So we call upon government to ensure that there's adequate safety measures that are put in place to ensure that nurses can work 24 hours without any fear of attack. They also be provided with adequate resources. We don't want to go to a clinic to find that they don't even have Panado, or they don't have a particular basic medication that a patient might need at the local level as the primary health care. So we also encourage that the young learners of today must start to take nursing as one of the career professions that they can be able to take up, and so that we fill the gaps, because our fear as the PSA is that in the next few years we might find that we are going to find ourselves having shortage of professional nurses due to the fact that the young ones are not interested, are not taking up this profession.
All right. Thanks for that, Ruben. Jabulani, let me give you a chance then to speak from Hospice's view and give us your own reflections on the state of nursing.
No, thanks very much, Cathy. Let me start by saying, as Comrade Mananela said, we have, dedicated this May to be the month of, nurses, where now we observe with them in terms of the challenges that they are facing in the workplace collectively. Let me start by saying the status really of the healthcare system, it is gradually deteriorating, Cathy. When I'm saying so, we have observed that there is a gap in terms of, staffing, shortage of nurses. And the shortage of nurses is not really about a nurse, it's about in terms of their categories, in terms of their specializing area, and so forth. Also, we've seen another challenge in terms of deteriorating of the status is that there are no working equipment at the workplace level. Nurses are compromising on a daily basis, trying to figure out how best can they really make sure that patients receive, services. Also, nurses are faced by a challenge to say the numbers in terms of the communities or the villages where the clinics are situated and hospitals. The numbers of the communities are increasing, whereas themselves in terms of staffing, they are not getting increased, or they are not filling up the vacant posts by the department. Those are the challenges that we are really facing on a daily basis throughout the year. And also, some of the challenges that are there is when now nurses are lacking the skill in terms of what they come across, in terms of the conditions of the patients. And those, at the end of the day, they lead nurses to be exposed to medical legal hazards. So far, let me leave it in that way, Cathy, then I'll take it from there. Thank you very much.
So, in the midst then of all of these challenges that you have also clearly outlined, what then becomes the solution for nurses and a way in which you petition, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, the Department of Health and the government to improve matters? And I know a lot of you have been talking about this in terms of nurses in the public sector, but is it fair then to assume that nurses that work at private hospitals don't have any challenges, that their workplace environments are safe for them, that they have access to the kind of equipment or whatever tools that they might need? Ruben?
Look, the private sector is different. We all know that they have adequate resources. They can provide a quality service, given that obviously the money plays a role. However, there are obviously issues of employment and conditions and labor, whereby we know that many of our nurses in the private sector are overworked, simply because they rely heavily on the issue of looking for money than the service. So that is one aspect that needs to be regulated, of saying we know many nurses in the private sector, they do what is called moonlighting, where they move from one hospital to another in the quest to get more kind of payment by working more hours. That also compromises the patients, because it is human that at some point you need to rest, and it's also human that that is why there's regulated working hours in this country. Everybody should work at least 8 hours per day. But in the private sector, we know that nurses are overworked. They work beyond 8 hours, and that requires serious attention, because at the end of the day, it's patients who will be compromised by a tired nurse who come from another kind of workplace to the next one, and working over 8 hours. So I also want to come back to the issue of the public service, that we are now faced with a situation where obviously it's been muted. We have had last night the Minister of Health meeting that in the 7 days the President would have found a pen to sign the NHI. So the question is that for the successful implementation of NHI, we definitely need adequate nursing staffing, meaning that we don't want to see a situation where the nurses are in short of supply when we implement the NHI. And the NHI, for it to be successful, it is going to be heavily required or heavily relying on the number of nurses on the ground, meaning that if, for argument's sake, the way it's going to be implemented, if you find yourself at a particular clinic or hospital at a particular time, you need to get the same adequate service that you can get at the next hospital, meaning that the staffing and the number of nurses required at any level is going to be very, very critical for the successful implementation of NHI.
Do you think that there has been enough done to try and improve the ecosystem, the environment in which nurses are operating, especially if we're to think about what the future of this sector looks like and future career possibilities for young people?
Is Mrs. Cathy? Manamela?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no, coming to your question is that there are other things that we think should come first. Issues of the strategy. Remember, the department would come up with a strategy. The strategy will outline how they're going to deal with the different aspects in the Department of Health. So one of them is the service part, and the other one is the development part. The one that you're talking about, the students and the future and so on. We just recently have a new curriculum for nurses, but our worry is, Cathy, that curriculum that has been provided, because now nursing has been taken to the mainstream. It's now in the universities. The issue is the numbers that are allowed or are taken into those institutions. Again, it will be the numbers of the people that will be going through to do specialties. You must remember that nursing has also got some specialty aspects. You are intensive care, theater, and so on and so on. So if we have fewer and fewer of those that are offering those courses, then in the future, in the near future, like you were talking in the future, we might find ourselves having lack or little of those specialties that we will need in the future. Yes,
Gwena, I'm just going to interject. I'll give you an opportunity to continue on the other side of the latest news headlines.
A very good morning. With the news headlines, the African Transformation Movement says the revelations that the ANC and the IEC chairperson Mosotho Mepa worked together to try to deregister the party in 2019 proves that there might be a good case. 3 men have been gunned down in a suspected gang-related shooting in Mitchell's Plain on the Cape Flats, and a large team of forensic pathology experts is currently on the scene of the George collapsed building to assist with identifying those who died in the tragedy. A full news update at midday.
#SAFM Talking Point.
We continue the conversation on the Talking Point. We're looking at the state of nursing following International Nurses Day this past weekend. Gwena Manamela is the General Secretary of the Democratic Nursing Organization of South Africa. Ruben Maleka is a manager at the Public Servants Association, and Jabulani Mashego is with Hospersa in Limpopo. So, Gwena, just then a chance for you to conclude what you were saying in terms of the need for an overall strategy in the sector that you believe would be able to change things.
Yeah, okay. In summary, I would say the curriculum changes affected the numbers of nurses or the intake of nurses. That may affect the future nurse, because the numbers that are produced are getting reduced every now and then, every year. And the biggest worry that we have is the one of the nurses that are doing specialty nursing. But I heard what my colleague has said, Ruben, saying that the president has found the pen. We are very happy if the president has found the pen, because then that as well will now address the issue of the funding part. Because remember when I opened, I said this person who's with the patient 24 hours is a connection between the patient's needs and other professionals that she works with or he works with. So in the absence of the funds, then it becomes very difficult for this person to connect or coordinate the needs of this person that is central to other service providers.
Okay.
So we are happy. Yeah, we are happy if the president has found the pen and signed the NHI into law, so that at least the equipment. Essential. We're talking about essential equipment.
Yeah, Gwena, I don't know if Ruben said the president had found the pen. I think he said he was still looking for it.
No, I think he found it. I think he might have found
it. Ruben, did you say that he had found it?
Yes. In fact, I saw in the news last night that the Minister of Health mentioned the fact that the president has found the pen. It will be signed within these 7 days. So we are looking for these 7 days to see if indeed the pen is there.
Okay, all right. Anonymous, you're out in Cape Town. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, Cathy and your guests there.
Yes.
Yes, I agree that nurses work so very hard. I just wish our defense force would work 10% as hard as they work, and because of there's sometimes violence committed in the hospitals, like another policeman that was shot dead that was guarding a patient, and somebody that visited him, I don't know how they allow visitors to these patients, brought him a gun and slipped it under the blankets, and then he left, visitor left, and then this man then shot the policeman, and he could just run off free, and the car was waiting for him outside. Then I heard of a lady doctor that got raped at hospital. Why didn't they use a defense force? Because they're on doing zilch. They're doing zilch, nothing. Let them patrol or stand at hospital security gates or whatever, or wherever there's violence in our country. Let them patrol around. Okay, the other thing is, if your wife is a nurse, the one difficulty that I have, she's passed on now, is that you have to go to the pension fund, the nurse's pension fund, then you have to make 12 affidavits. Now, that means 6 from your family or neighbors, and then 6 from her family and neighbors. And during at that time, her family wasn't even working really, so all the money is to go to them, and I didn't mind because they were poor, so I supported the household and so on. But so you can imagine, would they give me one affidavit? No, they haven't, not one. So I would like to know from government. I mean, if you have an accident or if you in court, you need one witness. Why do we need 12 witnesses? And I know a guy around the corner, his wife now also died, and the family's evicting him. Families, they want all the money. And if they can evict or not make affidavits. Okay. And when I went back to the pension fund now, they said, no, it's been too long now, you must make again affidavits. After people have died or moved or whatever. So I'd just like to know, why the pension fund, is it legal for them to demand 12? And then after a few years, then they say, no, you must know the date is now. And once you made an affidavit, the date doesn't prescribe. Mm-hmm. Those people have made that affidavit half the time that people have moved or died or whatever the case is. So I don't know why the government or pension funds make it difficult or impossible just because it's money that's coming from government sources.
Okay. Okay, Anonymous. Thanks for calling in. I'll maybe bring it to you, Ruben, and also Jabulani. Let me start off with you, Ruben.
Cathy?
Yes.
Yes. Look, first of all, one has been looking at why the young ones do not take up the issue of nursing as a profession as one of the key aspects that the PSA wants to really put out there. To say, if by now we can be able to say, after passing, like the previous dispensation, that if you pass matric, there must be that particular access whereby you start your general nursing or, become a nurse from the start, from the beginning at the hospital, and progress to a point that you become a professional nurse. Because nowadays, as Kwena has indicated, they've taken that to university level. And that's where the problem is, because we all know that nursing is not about becoming, having degrees or only having, qualifications as a basic. The first thing is that you must have the love of it, meaning that once you become, past your matric, you want to go into a profession, become a nurse, and start beginning at the basics at the hospital and enroll through the studies, career advancement within the system. That makes a person that will understand the basics of nursing, not only to be a professional where you only obtained degrees, but you don't know the basics. And
okay.
That is what we want to see happening in the profession of nursing.
Ruben, I was also hoping that you would answer more Anonymous's question around why he needs so many affidavits just to release funds of his loved one who was a nurse.
I think that if that is the question, I think it goes to the issue. I'm sure it is referring to the pension fund, and
yes.
If there is a case that maybe off the line from our side, I'm sure probably that could be a PSA member. You can give the Anonymous my number, and they can contact me. We can assist to get their pension payout being made through JIPA. The PSA has got contact in JIPA. We can be able to assist in that regard.
Okay. Jabulani?
Okay, thanks very much. Yeah, let me take it from the strategy in terms of, the training for nurses. Because we've seen currently, as Comrade Manamela alluded that the curriculum has changed to a new direction. However, we all know that majority of the nursing colleges are belonging to government. And while those colleges are belonging to government, our submission will be that when they consider the number of intake or for learners, they need to bring of more numbers with an aim that they will come and close the gaps of shortages. While they take those numbers, therefore our submission as well is that on completion of the course, like the way government was doing those past 4 years or 5 years, all those nurses were being absorbed in the system of government so that they can be available as nurses. But we have seen recently they are no longer being absorbed. Our wish is to say government must go back to the drawing board and look again on that. While also looking to say now they have completed their course as general nurses, as Comrade Malika said, government must speed up the specializing area in terms of the needs, so that when you need nurses who are trained in primary health care at the clinics, prioritize the bigger number. In the hospitals, prioritize casualty and theaters and so forth, as we know all those specializing areas. Thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to take a couple of WhatsApp voice notes that have been coming through to the show on this issue.
Morning, Cathy. This is Zanele in Durban. Cathy, some of the reason the young learners are not interested in nursing is because those learners are the ones who escort their parent to the healthcare center and see their parent being bullied by the nurses and see the bad treatment their parents are getting from nurses. Some of the kids that I know, they don't wish to go back to the clinic because they witness how nurses are so bullied to their parents. And those children are the ones who are being sent to collect the medication. They see how nurses conduct themselves there. So that's why those youngsters are not interested, are not ever interested to become nurses. Thank you.
John, Parktown West. I go to hospital 2-3 times a month. Prostate problems, serious, and another major problem. And I'm at a clinic as well. So 4 times a month I'm at hospital or clinic. So I think I know a little bit. And between Helen Joseph and Joburg Hospital, Charlotte, the nurses work long hours. On a Tuesday, Thursday, there's 150, my friends, to 160 people seeing 2 doctors, sometimes 3 doctors. And there's 1 or 2 nurses to help. And 1 to do to take the pipes out and change the bags. 3 nurses for 150, plus other people working at 200 people. The clinic is nothing compared to the hospitals these days.
Sure, yeah. And listening to that from the eyes of a patient who has to use the health system quite frequently, it really does paint its own picture. Ruben, is the NHI going to be the answer that you hope it will be? Is it not a bit of a red herring?
Look, our position as PSA is very clear that we need a kind of collaboration with the private sector. We do not believe that the NHI on its own would be the only solution that can bring about the quality health services for all South Africans. And the one thing that I can give you, Cathy, is that we would not want to see monopoly of a very critical element of health. Health is a right. Everybody got the right to health. And once it's monopolized, you've got one service provider, such as public service, or maybe vis-a-vis, also you have one private sector. The danger of that is that you are creating, if I can put analogy, kind of another ESCOM. When there's a crisis, you don't have alternative. So that is why we're saying there should always be private sector and public sector working together for a better health service for all.
All right. We're going to have to leave it there for today for this particular conversation. We're completely out of time. Gwena Manamela is the General Secretary of the Democratic Nursing Organization of South Africa. Ruben Maleka is with the Public Servants Association, and Jabulani Mashego is with Hospersa in Limpopo. That's where we leave it for today on The Talking Point. The show back with you again between 9 o'clock and midday tomorrow. Up next is the book reading.
The book reading. Please note the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SFM presents another episode of Why Men Hate Women, written by Kopano Ratile.
What continues to worry me is what the police statistics usually do not show. You have to unpack them to see something disturbing if you are interested in patterns of violence.